this week's chapter of Bleach, the Soul King is seemingly killed in his weird, bubbly crystal thing, and that's pretty much the most exciting thing about this week's chapter. It's a shame that we've been on break for so long and we finally come back to Bleach, and it's really just not all that exciting. I am glad that Kubo is finally feeling better. I wish him the best of health, but maybe he should have taken another week off to come up with another story to tell, because this one just really didn't do too much for me, and it's basically just a glorified setup. Like I said, there's the scene at the very beginning of the chapter, which is basically just a retelling of what we saw before, except this time we actually get to see Juha Bach, or the Quincy leader himself, actually entering the palace and killing him this time, and even having a little bit of dialogue mentioning that he's the one who sees the future. And it is kind of interesting that maybe it's just the artwork that I was reading, maybe it's just the site I was looking at, but the thing is, with the actual Soul King, his actual appearance, they're still obscuring it, and it almost makes it seem as if he doesn't even have arms. Which, like I said, that could have something to do with the artwork, but it's very clear that he's definitely not a typical human, or even if he is human to begin with. There's a lot to explain with this character, but really the rest of the chapter is just the remaining survivors of Soul Society and everybody who's in the Quincy City meeting up together and getting ready to bust into the Soul King's palace. And this is all Urahara's plans, and this is through the combination of Kuratsuchi's big pedestal, which looks like a big wrestling ring, and then Yushiro, who's bringing them all of this armor. And I did like the confrontation that Yushiro had with Soifon, only for the fact that we get to see a side of Soifon that we never really see, which is her just getting real nervous and bubbly and excited over the fact of running into Yoruichi's brother, who I still can't believe is actually Yoruichi's brother because dude looks like a lady. Despite that, that's pretty much the bulk of this entire chapter right here. It's pretty much just all the characters getting ready to storm the Soul King's palace. There's a big pillar coming in at the very end with Ichigo seeing it, and then we have Ichibei who mentions that the humans are doomed. That's it. So, what's the rundown on this week's chapter of Bleach? Very simple and really just didn't do too much for me. And I don't want to hate on it too much because there were elements about it I liked. I liked that they actually went and showed us a little bit more of what happened when the Quincy leader was attacking the Soul King, even though they didn't really do too much with it. And it's not the first time that's happened in Bleach, where there's like a really big like character event or like a big moment in the series, and as soon as it's done, they immediately cut away to something else. This should have been expected, and I should have seen this coming. But still, I was kind of hoping that they were going to break that trend and get out of the mold, so to speak. But otherwise, I still liked all the character artwork. It was kind of cool getting to see some of the survivors that are coming in, and there's still a lot of questions about who's actually survived and who is still fighting. Like, I did love the fact that they brought up Kenpachi. That's another part of the story that I still wish they would get back to, especially because they sort of left it in thin air, and then you have his subordinate Yachiru. I'd still like to see a little bit more from her. You still have Komamura, who's still doing his own thing. Who even knows what's going on with Hitsugaya and Rangiku at this point? There's a lot of what-ifs and a lot of questions in this week's chapter, and not too much explanation. But still, there was a little bit of room for humor with the confrontation between Yushiro and Soifon, and there's even a little bit of Omeda humor if you really want that, and you guys know how I feel about that character. Otherwise, just really nothing special this week. But if you have been following the series, I would still recommend checking out this week's chapter. It still has some pretty entertaining moments and a few funny bits, and it might get you excited for the next chapter. Otherwise, this really just did not do too much for me. I still think, like I said, you should check it out if you're following the series, but as a score this week, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. I just wanted a little bit more. Maybe I'm holding my expectations up a little too high for this one, but still, I really feel they could have cut out some of the comedy with Omeda and maybe inserted a little bit more of dialogue between the Quincy leader and the Soul King, or maybe even something else with Ichigo. Just to get to see him in a panel of Bleach is like a big deal, you know? He didn't even really have any dialogue. He's just sort of concerned over what's going on with this big pillar that's getting ready to come into town and start messing up shit at the Soul King's palace. Although, I do like the prospect that more people are going to be arriving, and that just means there's probably going to be more fighting. So like I said, this was a pretty decent chapter right here. If you're following the series, check it out. Otherwise, steer clear and wait for the next one. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the like button. And before you guys leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's chapter of Bleach. I didn't really care for it, but how did you guys feel about it? Did you like this week's chapter? Please tell me in the comments section below. And if you guys would like to subscribe to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. It's really easy to do. And remember guys, if you would like to donate directly to us, we have a PayPal link. And one of the best ways to help us out is to use our Amazon bookmark link. Whenever you make a purchase on Amazon, use that link. It will help support our channel. We would really appreciate it. And make sure to check us out on our social media, Facebook and Twitter.